have an abundance of something is to have more than you need.
Say the right things.
The law of abundance.
Have the right thoughts. Practice the right practices.
Principle that is always true.
Wealth and financial prosperity will be yours.
No matter what we do.
Yeah, it doesn't quite sound right, does it?
No matter who we are.
Life exists in abundance.
It is just the way the universe works.
Hello and welcome to episode 97 of Truth Be Told. I gotta warn you, this is going to be kind of an amusing month, or at least some certain parts of it. So stay tuned, strap in for that, because we are talking about Nacho Mom's prosperity, and it's my phone was ringing, so I think that's another sign that the universe is responding to this, to our thoughts. It's a powerful month coming up here that we are going to be looking at, reimagining prosperity into abundance, into a bigger thing. So we are doing this idea of Nacho Mama's prosperity. We kind of, were joking around about it, but then the more we looked at it and thought about it, we're like, what? Nachos make a great analogy for this conversation. So we are looking at the classic version, the chips and dip, and how what was taught in the past is, while in different ways, in different forms, in different faiths and philosophies, it took on different meanings, but it was the idea basically around prosperity really applying to money, and that's about it. And as we are evolving all the time, evolving new thoughts and evolving our use of new thought and new thought principles, we're now moving into the Nacho Supreme version, which is so many more different toppings, excitement, and fullness. It's really talking about the abundance of all, much bigger than just that financial prosperity. So we like the nacho analogy, even thinking back about, kind of similar, like some of the teachings of the original ideas of prosperity were sometimes like that little canned cheese. When you find cheese in a can, it can even be maybe a little bit slightly toxic, not calling anybody out, but pointing out that cheese, while it was good when it was new, there's something better out there. And thinking about like that wonderful plate of nachos that you get into the restaurant, and it's meant to be shared. And it's got, so many different flavors and additions that, this is the version of what we would like to move into for the future of creating, realizing, not creating, but realizing that we are in an abundant universe and that there's so much good around us. So the idea of, as we reimagine prosperity, looking into, it's about the experience that you get and about sharing that with others. The more people that we can, bring into this idea of sharing abundance, of sharing the nachos. It even came up in our conversation of having table nachos, where you cover the table in plastic, lay out the chips, and just throw all that wonderful goodness in there, each bite being a surprise of goodness. Well, that's what we're looking to achieve in this future, in the idea of what is prosperity, or really what is abundance. So sit back, enjoy this episode of Truth Be Told.
What does a nosy pepper do? Gets hot up in your business. Oh, and what did the tacos say to the hamburger? This is nacho cheese.
We all know that God wants us to be wealthy, right? Right? Say the right things, have the right thoughts, practice the right practices, and wealth and financial prosperity will be yours. Yeah, it doesn't quite sound right, does it? For sure, there is no creative power responsible for this life that would limit our good, including our financial health. However, want it does not. Life is abundant. Any limitations we experience are strictly human. systems, expectations, oppression, classism. God does not want for us to be abundant. Life exists in abundance. Yet, we have certainly placed a very human expectation on God's wanting for us to be prosperous. And this is the chips and dip version of this week's topic, the original, the OG, the old school take on prosperity. Over the last 80 plus years or so, we have seen the prosperity gospel grow in popularity from Oral Roberts to the Joel Osteens, prosperity teachers that reassure us that God wants us to be wealthy, and all you have to do is commit yourself, worship the right way, give the right amounts, and you'll be rewarded. Google prosperity gospel, and you will find all sorts of results show up. Some helpful, some not so much, some accurate, and some maybe not so accurate. What you will find is that the prosperity gospel, as we know it now, is generally thought of as a post-World War II movement started in the Pentecostal church. Interestingly enough, this theology was not new in the 1940s. Its roots can be drawn back to the New Thought teachings of the late 19th century, when New Thought made the shift from a healing teaching to a wealth and prosperity teaching. If you want the real lowdown on the prosperity gospel, check out Kate Bowler's book, Blessed, A History of the American Prosperity Gospel. Much of these New Thought prosperity teachings from the late 1880s remain alive in the movement today, separate from the Christian take on the idea, but similar in many ways. And we regularly offer classes, books, workshops, you name it, all about upping your prosperity. The gist of it is, your prosperity is an outpicturing of your thoughts, so change your thoughts, and you will change your prosperity. That sounds innocuous enough, right? However, at this point in time, this feels so far from the truth for so many. What does it mean if you change your thoughts and you don't become wealthy? Turns out, there can be a great amount of blame and shame that goes along with this way of thinking. Hopefully unintentional, but nonetheless, it is there. Think the right thoughts, and you'll be wealthy, rich even. Starts to sound a whole lot like do the right things, and you'll be rewarded. The unspoken part says, if you don't experience financial change, then you are doing it wrong. You aren't faithful or spiritual enough. While this certainly is not the intention of the theology, it seems it is hard to be avoided. And there is another very key factor at play here. This type of prosperity thinking gives away our power to something outside of ourselves. It gives our power away to money. You either have it or you don't. If you have it, then you did all of the right things, obviously. If you don't have it, well, then you're doing something wrong. Either way, in this way of thinking, it is the money that decides. It is the system that we have developed around money that decides how we should feel about ourselves, and essentially, that's what determines our value. Through this lens, prosperity is about doing the right thing and thinking the right thoughts, which, from the privileged perspective in which this might work, seems very simple. However, for those who find themselves in a less than privileged life experience, this tends to sound like nothing less than victim blaming. What might be intended to be empowering from those who had enough of an advantage to begin with to allow this theology to play out in their benefit, to anyone else without that advantage, just sounds like uninspired and out of touch. We end up attaching merit to each person based directly on the level of prosperity that each individual has been able to amass. Tie this directly to one's level of faith, and we have a system where the absence of finances is seen as a character flaw, punishing the sick and the poor, while simultaneously viewing those who have amassed an abundance of financial wealth as morally and spiritually faith-filled. None of us live in a vacuum. Nobody gains wealth without the assistance of others, and nobody who hasn't experienced the privilege of wealth ends up poor without a system that is designed to put them there. While everyone has the ability to change a thought or belief, which in turn can begin to shift one's experience, the chips and dip version of prosperity encourages a rugged, individualistic American exceptionalism. All you have to do is think the right thoughts and do the right things, and you'll be rich. A lens that seems to leave no room for any experience outside of the financially privileged. It is no secret when we look at our world that conflict, polarization, and a framework of discontent abounds.
What if that didn't have to be?
What if that didn't have to be?
What if that didn't have to be?
The truth is that underneath it all is our innate hardwiring for love, connection, and belonging.
In our ever-evolving experience, now is the time.
Now is the time.
Is the time to unlearn societal constructs of the past.
And relearn what it means to be human.
To be human.
What it means to be human and a part of the global community.
This can only be done together.
This can only be done together.
This can only be done together.
We are being called to pack away the us versus them mentality and instead embrace the profound power of we.
Join Soul Evolution Collaborative.
Join Soul Evolution Collaborative
for the O-Shift Healing the Divide Summit,
November 14th through 17th.
November 14th through the 17th.
This event, through powerful speakers, engaging workshops, and collective conversation, will explore the transformative effects of healing the divide.
Now is the time for change.
Now is the time for healing.
Now is the time for healing the divide. To have an abundance of something is to have more than you need. So the official dictionary definition of abundance is to have a very large quantity of something. This idea of abundance, I believe, stretches beyond the ideas and lessons in prosperity that we are often given, especially in spiritual communities. Whereas prosperity often sounds prescriptive and dependent on our thoughts and our beliefs and our actions. Do these things and you'll experience this. Just believe that and you'll get this. If you don't have it, you're not doing it right. You get the picture. The law of abundance. Law in the sense of universal law, not some mandate, but a law or principle that is always true. No matter what we do, no matter who we are, it is just the way the universe works. Every time, without fail. Sort of like gravity. So the law of abundance is like this in that it's an abiding principle within universal laws. It is the reality that there's an unlimited source of everything we could ever want and could ever need. It is already ours, always present, always available. Now I know what you're thinking. Believe me, because I am thinking it too. If that is true, then why do we see so much lack in the world? I mean, we can't gloss over the fact that many individuals don't have enough. But the little sneaky point in this is that it doesn't mean that there isn't enough. Systems and frameworks, beliefs and ideals, and the drive of rugged individualism and consumerism and competition and all that have dampened our experience and awareness of abundance. We don't have to look any further than the natural world to see that there's a unique and perfect system that supports life, that is constantly moving, constantly maintaining, constantly sustaining. This is the truth of abundance. And so abundance doesn't play favorites. It doesn't say, hey, got that degree, then here's a truckload of abundance. Hey, you working super hard? Well, then abundance for you. Have the right whatever? Abundance for you. That's not abundance's MO. Instead, that's ours. We have created barriers, blocks, huge sinkholes sometimes that get in the way of the awareness and actualization of the truth of abundance. Now, sometimes this is the little we, and sometimes it's the big we. So abundance says, hey, I'm already here. You don't have to do anything, say anything, be anything. And the more that we can lean into this awareness, this understanding that often seems like a lofty idea or belief, the more that we can begin to create and move in ways that abundance would have us move. And this feels a lot like community, a lot like caring for those around us, a lot like creating systems and frameworks that support the awareness of abundance for all of us. Because there is more than enough of everything that we could think of. And once we unleash this awareness in new and powerful ways, the result will be more than we could have possibly imagined. Making me hungry seeing all those nachos.
I know, right?
I love this conversation, and I'm actually listening to Kate Bowler's book, Blessed, and I'm telling you, it is amazing to look at the continued evolution of this conversation from like this prosperity sort of do this, do that, think this, believe that, have, in order to then everything will be added unto you, right? And that sort of idea. And then moving, kind of shifting and beginning to shift in what is abundance and what does it look like? What does it look like to allow the barriers to come down so that can be actualized and experienced for everyone, so that it becomes not something that you have to earn. I guess that's the whole thing, is that prosperity seems this kind of like have to do it to earn it. And so like these spiritual truths and laws and universal sort of things like abundance, you can't do anything to earn abundance because it already is. Just like we can't do anything to earn connection with the universal presence because it already is us, and so it's like it does. I think it does kind of play in this whole prosperity idea. It does play into kind of what we've been sold these many years. Do this and get this, get this before someone else gets, that sort of mindset. So I think it's comfortable. I think that sort of idea looking about prosperity is comfortable. And I think that, I think there are communities and ways of looking at abundance and prosperity that are coming out of that old idea of prosperity. So, but I think sometimes we hear prosperity, for me at least, it has some of the baggage of some of the older ideas of prosperity. But I do recognize that, in these new conversations, they're often used kind of simultaneously or interchangeably. So
well, and I'll out myself. This is the first conversation in a while, first topic theme that we've had in a while where I feel like I'm learning just as much as everyone that we're trying to speak to, right? Like, because the version of this conversation that I was trained in was the prosperity version, and it was all the books and the classes, and they all said basically like we tried to apply universal principles, and this is what I'm realizing and uncovering as we're in this conversation, rather than other conversations, other topics we've had where I feel like I've been at least a week ahead.
We're side by side, aren't we now?
Yeah, but this one's like real time, almost. But what I realized, like even just today, was realizing I think this is the only place that I've seen in New Thought where we've tried to take universal principles and apply them to a very human-made system. Everywhere else, we're like, nope, let's go to the source. Let's use principles and go to the source and observe the realm of effect, see what is out in front of us, look at the thing that we're faced with, and let that tell us what it is. What are the beliefs in play that are creating that thing? But here with prosperity, we have tried to apply these universal principles to be like, what are the beliefs that have created the thing in this human system that we're all like pigeonholed into? Like, it doesn't quite equate the same way. But like we've pretended like it does, I think. And we're pretending that we're not giving our power away and measuring by the money. We're pretending like, no, you can just be prosperous, whether you have money in the bank account or not. And it's like, yeah, but that's not what, like all of the, you take a book and it's all about the money. I mean, you take a class or you read a book and it's all about the money. And it's like, gauge how well you're doing financially based on the money in your bank account. How many unexpected checks showed up this month? That's how we'll gauge how well we're, and we're just giving away the power, which is totally opposite what we are attempting to do in any other scenario. It's a fascinating thing to uncover. At least I think so. I'll let you know in a couple weeks.
How fascinating it is.
Yeah.
It is. It's amazing to think about. If I get hung up on like zeros in the bank account, how many commas and all that kind of stuff. It is so narrow. But if I can just sit back and like thinking about like the original definition of prosperity, and you could still find it in some places. It might be like number 3 down the list of that. Prosperity just means success. It doesn't mean, it doesn't apply to finances at all. It just means success. So you can have, like prosperity in your health. You can have prosperity in, love around you, or prosperity in experiences. I think we miss out on so much of that stuff because we are hung up on like, I can't write a check for that because I don't have that much money in the bank to cover that. But then, to have like whatever this experience is. But then there's another way that I can do a very similar thing with that experience with the exact amount of money that I have. And I'm missing it because I'm so focused on the financial. But, when we just open up to that, I really love what Ryan said, like abundance just is, and it's all around us. And it's just a way of opening our awareness into experiencing more. I think it's a powerful thing to be looking at because
Yeah, for sure.
And especially like when we look at like the in reassessing my own beliefs and what I was taught about it and whatever, and it's almost as if like the prosperity, like the teachings of it, like prosperity teachings, right? Like proper, however that got put together. It's almost as if from that perspective, the system is infallible and it's like the person that needs to go and change. Whereas when you look at it from an abundance perspective, it's like this system makes absolutely no sense. Like we have literally gone in and put limitations on people through this system. We are limiting, like, abundance just is. There is enough housing, there's enough water, there's enough food, there's enough opportunity, there's enough ways to serve each other. That list goes on, except for all the places that we've put limitations so that you have to whatever.
No.
You have to do the job, you have to buy the thing, you have to pay that whatever. It's like, wow, we've literally created limitations and roadblocks like left and right in the name of prosperity.
Well, I think you're Dan. I think you're channeling me because I was literally going to say those exact same words. Like that is the thing with abundance. Like abundance, if we look at it, it is. But then we're like, well, then how come we're not seeing it like on this sort of this physical plane in a consistent way all the time? It is because of those very things. I think this overlaps our conversation last month. That the way that we view the world, the way that we have created systems that say you got to do this to get this, but you got to do this to earn this, or whatever. And this whole idea of privilege, I think it does kind of bleed into this conversation as well. And so the question is not, I think we asked the wrong questions. Instead of saying, why are we not abundant? It's like, why are we creating things that block our awareness of that? That there is more than enough, that there's, with a level spread of all things that exist, a level thin peanut butter spread off the over the bread, not glopped here and glopped there, but just there is enough. There is enough for people to thrive and to live and to support one another. And I think the conversation also around abundance is, what does it mean to care for one another? I think that is the shift. What does it mean to care for one another? What does it mean to create systems and frameworks where abundance is the like the goal for all, you know. And I think that sometimes we're just asking the wrong questions. And I think that, abundance is there. It's always there. It can't not be there because it is part of this kind of reciprocal nature of the universe, this thing that keeps all things flowing, you know? I mean, if you look at, you know, like I said in the segment, you look at nature, you see it. It's always sustaining, maintaining, moving, sustaining, maintaining, moving, always. And so, but we create those things kind of like damming up the river, you know? And the things that we're doing.
I think, you know, a big part of it is looking at like who benefits from the system that we have created as well. When you have something like as abundant as like land and, you know, like food that comes from it, when it's kind of ended up in the hands of very few, then it's like all of a sudden now they're the ones to dole out that abundance and, you know, create whatever ways that they have of maintaining it themselves. You know, I'm thinking of like, you know, indigenous culture in the United States and, you know, Native American, where they didn't have like names or, you know, concepts of like ownership, owning the land. And then when you get some systems that hold it in position to like dole it out as certain people feel compelled to do, that creates that kind of a lack consciousness of that holding back, like that a human being is able to dole out something as abundant that the universe just provides. So when we can maybe realize that it's all of ours, that this is for everyone to share in, and you know, creating a new way of allowing that to be, I think is the ultimate goal as time moves forward.
And then what does it look like for us to begin to live from spaces of abundance? So not necessarily focused on, okay, abundance equals this amount of zeros, but like to live from a space of that universal energy of abundance. So I'm already enough, you know, that already enough sort of energy. And I think that so often, I can only speak for myself because I'm like you, Dan. We're moving and shaking, learning, you know, as we go, because there are lots of aspects of my own life where this shows up, where, you know, my first thought is not enough, you know, and I read somewhere that is often our first thought when we get up. Not, you know, first thought is like, oh, not enough sleep, not enough time, not enough this. Not enough, whatever. And so, I'm not saying everyone, but often the first idea when I wake up is like, oh, I didn't have enough sleep, you know. And so then we already kind of are in this energy of not enough, and then it begins to fuel everything that we do, the things that we create in the world. And so it's like, what would it be collectively? You know, what would it look like if we could collectively start from a space of enough? And I think that it would inform the decisions we make, specifically the decisions that we make that may limit how the abundance shows up for other folks, you know, because oftentimes we make decisions about not from a not enough space, and then it has a trickle down effect on other people that we may not even realize. And so just a shift from living from a space of already enough can then inform the decisions that we make, these decisions that often we are unaware or do not realize actually impact the lives of others and how they're able to move about the world. And so I think that just making just that simple shift of, you know, waking up and let's start with enough. Let's, you know, get out of this mindset of not enough. But I think for me, it is a habit. And
well, I can totally relate to that, especially the idea of like waking up and like,
every day
more sleep. And my like almost immediate thought is, you know, to look back at, because, you know, part of the teaching is like our life is going to mirror what our beliefs are. Like we are creating and viewing life through the lens of our beliefs. And so looking at my experience, that feeling of waking up and that's not enough sleep, well, why am I not getting enough sleep? Why does it feel like not enough sleep? And I think often it's because there are so many other things that I feel like I have to be doing. Like I have to be doing this work and this work simultaneously. We're building this and need to supplement with this. So I'm like, I have to do all this other stuff so that X, Y, and Z. Well, all right. So then now it's just like double the workload, in some cases, triple the workload, and then cooking, cleaning, family, whatever, right? Like all
and watching football.
and watching football, but then, that's kind of the ironic thing, right? Because there is this trend of I'm forgetting the name of it now, but basically this idea of like when we feel like we're losing control of our time during the day, we end up staying up later at night because that's the time that we feel like we have control over, and we don't want to relinquish that sense of control by going to sleep because we know we're going to wake up and have to hit the thing, right? Have to hit it again. And I'm like, I can kind of relate to that. Like it feels like there is, because of this system, like I need this job to have this money so that I can, so like you need money to live. Like we're to that point where like you don't have money, you die, right? Like you have to pay for shelter. You have to pay for water. You have to pay for like things that are basic human needs that we've turned into privileges. Like, I don't think we actually take the time to think about that a lot. That's insane. The fact that we have made an entire industry out of housing alone, out of distribution of water. Like, well, you got to get paid to do it. It's like, well, why? Why do we have to No, we've decided that we have to pay for these things because somebody needs to get paid to do it, because we all need that. We're just replicating the cycle of like, well, you need to have a job so you can get paid so that you can live. It's like, well, what if we remove those barriers? What if we didn't have to pay for water? Like, I mean, and I think this is probably a premise that's like super far out for like most people. Like this, just like we're so wrapped up in like, well, of course you got to pay for your housing.
It's like Stardate, it's like Star Trek sort of like.
Yeah. But like, I get it. Like, I totally get it. This idea of, wow, if I didn't feel like I had to do the thing to make the money to pay like, if we all could just focus on the thing that's calling us, which is what we're building here, right? Like, if the only thing we were to do, I'm sure we'd do other things. I'm sure we would go on hikes more and take walks or I don't know, whatever. But like, if this were the only thing that was calling us as work, paid or not, if we could each just do that one thing, how much better off we all would be if everybody could just do that thing they're being called. Because I can guarantee you, I was to say almost, I can guarantee you that if we were all to really listen to the thing calling us, it would be something that serves other people.
Yeah, and would support. It'd be, and that's an interesting idea. Like if we had that freedom, and I know we talk a lot about ifs, if we did this, or but I do think that, I mean, if we did,
and then you'd get enough sleep. That's the point. Like, you'd get enough sleep.
but it would serve. I mean, we would find, I think, that we actually would have systems that supported one another. And so it's like, all this sounds like this grand, like, oh, wishes. But I do think that there are ways that we can begin to make these shifts in our own life. Just these simple things that can begin to shift our perspective, because that's what happens. That's how we see shifts out pictured in the larger macro sense. It all happens with one small shift of perspective, and then another person, and then like this whole sort of shift. And so I think that that's the value of these conversations, is that if we can begin to look in our own lives, how can I allow abundance, the capital A abundance, that energy of enough? How can I how can that show up in my life, and how can I begin to live, even if it's in small ways in my life, in that enough state? And so it'd be a really interesting experiment if we all just kind of took 30 days and just kind of like
Right.
focused on like, what if I, in those areas, specifically the areas where we're always like, not enough this, not enough that, not enough that. If we even just substituted, I have enough, whatever,
Mm.
even just that shift in energy, I wonder what the impact would be. Um, I can only imagine that it would be positive, or something that serves us further.
Yeah.
Um,
Or
yeah,
even offering, like, knowing we have enough time, we have enough energy, we have enough space, whatever the enough is, not only for ourselves, but then like we each have a thing that somebody else needs. Like we each have a thing we love doing that
mhm.
somebody else needs, that would serve somebody else. Whether it's like, I don't know, maybe somebody's like, man, I love data entry. I just mindlessly put in the data. I love it. It's great. To have that person do that thing for other people who just despise doing that, or who aren't detailed people, right? Or um, somebody who loves cooking for groups, for a single parent who doesn't have the time, or what, I don't know what. I'm just like, literally just like things coming to my mind at the moment. Like there's so many ways to utilize the abundance that does already exist.
Yep.
When we have that shift in framework, and I wonder how much more energizing that would be, to be able
Yeah.
to be in those moments, be in those places of like, what's the thing that I have that other people are looking for, where I could serve them in that way that really feeds everybody, honestly.
That really just brought it up for me, like brought it all home. That yes, like human nature, as we said earlier, it's like people want to serve, people want to contribute, people want to offer, but we've created this system where, okay, you contribute by doing this. This is the only job that you're able to get, and it's not that skilled, so you're only going to get this much in return. You're not going to have all your basic needs met. But there you go. And it's not
Yeah.
a pleasure to serve in that capacity. But now, okay, so in the idea that, the spirit, the universe, all of this is abundance. It's infinite. And remembering that we are that we are the way that spirit shows up. And so if we could create this way that everybody, that one thing, they feel called to, like, hey, this is my offering to the world, man. Here you go, enjoy it. That's the way that the universe is just pouring out what that is. And it's a whole shift in allowing people to fall into those places where they were really called to be. That the money, all of that kind of stuff, would hold pretty much zero importance, because we would be all
Right.
sharing, and everything would be provided for in that perfect way.
Well, this has me thinking, like, what is mine? Mine is not cooking for groups. Don't get excited. Now, Chris might be cooking for groups, because I know he's a good cook. But but it does. Like, what is mine? Those little things. And I think that's the thing. It's like, often it's so easy for us to talk about what needs to change without actually changing. And so just being empowered, just to make some of those small shifts and how we view things. I think that we would actually see the rocks of the barriers to the flow of this universal idea of abundance. We would see them just crumble. And I think it starts with those small shifts in our own awareness, as always.
Or it's almost like we're waiting for someone else to make the shift. Like, it sounds great, love the idea. Who do I stand behind? Like, where do I line up?
Yeah, you shift first and I'll follow you. It's like jumping off of a cliff or something into water. Yeah. You go first, I'll follow you.
Yeah. And like, I get it. I mean, I think it could easily seem overwhelming or impossible or just too much, or we have no clue. Right. And so it is easy to just like, let's talk about it. Let's talk about it. And like, all right, well, we've been talking about it for like, I don't know, 25, 30, 50 years, like it's been talked about.
Talking about it a lot too.
Yeah, right. I mean, just here we've been talking about it a lot, and so maybe that's the thing, is like we each actually have to do it. It's not like, yeah, it's a good idea. Wait for someone else to do it. Wait for the group to do it. Like, we each as individuals have to do the thing, whatever the thing is, whatever your call. And here in this case, I guess it's whatever your call is. Like, what's the thing that if you could only ever do one thing for the rest of your life, like what's that thing? Like, what's the thing that motivates you and inspires you and energizes you to help others?
And how can you give that away?
Yeah. So I guess the law, the reciprocal nature of the universe still holds true as we're kind of unlearning and relearning. Like, that part's still legit.
Yeah. Too legit to quit.
Yeah, that's right. I didn't really doubt that one, but it's nice to like, oh yeah, that makes sense.
It's real.
It's real. Yeah, it's really real. Yeah,
really real.
Awesome.
All right, everybody. Well, thanks for tuning in. Check us out. We appreciate you. We appreciate all the support that you're offered or able to share our way, whether it's support through your attention, through your viewing, through your subscribing and liking, or through a donation on our website. It is all part of sharing, in this infinite abundance. So thanks for just being here. Now, one other way to be here and come, and maybe feed your soul a little bit is check out Second Sunday on our website. You can sign up for that. This is where we come together and celebrate these concepts, principles, celebrate spirit, and lean deeper into this experience of all that is. So it's going to be a fun month right now. So come check us out, and we'd love to have you there. Other than that, thanks again, and we'll see you next week.